My name is Nick Reynolds. I graduated from the ICPW program in August of 2017. I was living in Oregon when I did it, and I did my practicum at Options for Southern Oregon, a community mental health agency in Josephine County. And I'm currently doing my internships with Multilingual Counseling, working with them in Oakland and Newark, and the Child Therapy Institute, working with them in El Cerrito. I'm going to talk about three things about my experience in internship. One is language, being able to do therapy in more than one language. One of them is handling frustrations of relationships with managers or trainings not going the way you'd like, and self-care. So for language, one of the things that was important to me was being able to find, obviously, a paid internship in the Bay Area. I wanted to move back here from Oregon after I graduated. And I spoke with my supervisor, Sergio, and he knew that I spoke Spanish, and he said, if you can do therapy in more than one language, you'll have a much better chance of being able to get paid and get paid well in the Bay Area doing therapy. And I do have a lot of experience studying and speaking Spanish in my life. My previous degree is in linguistics. I've studied in Mexico. I've worked with Spanish-speaking populations, but I had been in Southern Oregon for the past 5 years and felt out of practice. I hadn't been using the language very much. So one of the things I did was just try to find ways to practice, listen to Spanish language podcasts, speak with Spanish-speaking friends, anything that I could do that would just get me back into that mindset. Another thing that I did that helped was I started with kids. The child clients that I worked with were bilingual and in fact probably spoke more English than Spanish, but I had to speak Spanish with their parents. So that was less of a jumping right into the pool kind of situation where I'm speaking with the parents less often than I'm speaking with the kid, and it can let me go slow getting back into the language. So right now I actually only have one adult Spanish-speaking client, monolingual, but I have a number of child and adolescent clients whose parents speak Spanish. Another thing that was important for me with the language piece was just not to succumb to negative self-talk around not being good enough or just sort of, I have an overactive superego that tells me you're just not doing it right. And I thought it was important for me to acknowledge that, yes, I believe that every Spanish-speaking person who wants to come for therapy should be able to have a therapist who understands them 100% and can communicate with them 100%. And that's a world that I want to create, and we're not there yet, and I'm doing my best to provide the services I can to those who need it. And so just to not get too hard on myself for not being as good as I would like was important. And really know your limits and go slow. There were a number of Spanish-speaking potential clients who I met who I just realized I'm not going to be able to understand this person's accent, or there's just something about the communication here that's not going to work, and to try to put myself into that position because I feel like I should, or my supervisor's expecting that of me, was not good for me. And I needed to know my limits and just take the cases that I knew I could do. Second piece is frustration with supervisors or with just inadequate training. I definitely had some of those experiences. One thing that was really important for me was just building my emotional awareness, my emotional intelligence, and mindfulness around that. Like, if I am getting activated by a certain conversation or a certain circumstance, why is that? Get support around that. Get my own therapy. Talk to friends. Talk to colleagues, and to know what I need and to try to ask for it. Sometimes I might need empathy. Sometimes I might need advice. But just to whatever I needed to do to not get too taken in by the frustrations of life, like build my frustration tolerance, basically. The other thing is, again, know your limits and go slow. If this conversation with this person at this time, if you're not ready for it, just say, I'm not ready for it. I need to have this conversation at a later time. I took an NVC training, 6-week NVC training. I took a compassion cultivation training for 8 weeks. I was doing everything I could to build my toolkit for self-compassion, for self-empathy, for communication with others, just to handle all of those difficult circumstances. And then finally, self-care, and that kind of feeds into it a little bit as well. Everyone talks about sleep, exercise, diet, saying no. Saying no was the biggest thing for me, finding the things that I needed to say no to so that I was able to say yes to the things that were important to me. That NVC class was great, that compassion class was great, but they had me out till 9 o'clock 2 days a week. And then there was I had a tea group on Thursday nights that was out till 9 o'clock 3 days a week. And that was not good for my sleep. I needed to get to sleep earlier on those weeknights so that I'd be ready for the work the next day. So once those trainings were over, I've completely reduced my number of nights when I'm out really late. So that's one thing, is just knowing that I need my sleep, don't overcommit myself, make the weekdays all about preparing myself to be able to show up for my clients, and then finding out how to get what I need during the weekend or during small hours during the week as well, if it fits. So that's it.